Welcome to the Planning Board meeting, Thursday, February 6, 2025. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by mailing the annual schedule of meetings to the Star Ledger, Union County Local Source, Union County Hawk, and Tappan to Clark, by posting such annual meeting schedule on the bulletin board in Town Hall reserved for such announcements, and by the proper filing of said notice with the Township Clerk. Formal action may be taken at this meeting. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must always be maintained. I'm going to do roll call. Mayor Albanese?
Here.
Mr. Ulrich?
Here.
Mr. Benini? Mr. Koch? Mr. Triola?
Here.
Mr. Altman?
Here.
Mr. Steinberg?
Here.
Mr. Brocato?
Here.
Mr. Arancio?
Here.
Mr. Gribb?
Here.
Mr. Cruz? Okay. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Start with the minutes. Motion to approve the minutes of, oops, sorry.
Motion.
Second? Correspondence? Oh, I'm sorry. Roll? Yeah.
No, a vote on the minutes. Is it all in favor, or you want to take a roll call? No, usually all in favor. Okay, all in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to correspondence. A motion to dispense with the reading of the correspondence.
Motion. Second.
Second? Okay.
I made it.
Made by Mike.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries.
Now a discussion of fourth round affordable housing and housing element and fair share plan. We're going to turn it over to Albert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The following is an affordable housing update and what the planning board may be expected to undertake before June 30th, 2025. As I said, this is just an update. No action is scheduled for tonight and none is expected. On March 20, 2025, amendments to the Fair Housing Act were signed into law governing the fourth round affordable housing obligation. The law requires that the Department of Community Affairs follow its methodology in determining and allocating municipal affordable housing obligations contained in the law. On October 18, 2025, the DCA issued its allocation report, and the Township of Clark's obligation for the fourth round was calculated as follows: 71 units present need or rehabilitation, 166 prospective need or new units. Municipalities had until January 31, 2025 to accept, modify, or reject the DCA's allocation. The DCA considered three allocation factors in calculating the obligation: increases in assessed valuation of non-residential properties, income factor as measured against other municipalities in the region, and land capacity. The township planner reviewed the DCA calculations and determined that the calculations were correct, with the income factor weighing heavily in the prospective need obligation of 166 units. On January 29th, 2025, the council adopted a resolution accepting the DCA allocation and instructing the township clerk, planner, and attorney to notify the judiciary of this decision. Essentially, the law that was amended last year provides a formula that is to be followed by the Department of Community Affairs in calculating the obligation, and essentially at this stage, The planning function is to determine whether or not the Department of Community Affairs followed that formula in making the allocation to the municipalities throughout the state and this region. On February 3, the Township Council retained Jeffrey Seranian, an attorney, to serve as Special Affordable Housing Counsel and guide the township through the remainder of the process. So at this point, this is all background information, and it's been basically a responsibility of the Township Council to address the new law. However, at this point, the next step is a planning step, the preparation of a housing element and fair share plan addressing the township's prospective need obligation. And this housing element and fair share plan must be adopted by the planning board by June 30th, and it must also be endorsed by the Township Council by June 30th. So the township planner is going to be guiding the planning board and council through this process along with Mr. Seranian's help. The housing element and fair share plan is an element of the master plan and is the tool used by the township to meet its obligation. Because the township has limited vacant land, and that was recognized in the DCA analysis and by Mr. Ricky, the township will examine whether redevelopment opportunities exist to meet the obligation along with any other planning tools that may be available. As I stated, this is simply an alert to you to notify you of what's gone on legally, what's gone on at the Township Council, and to alert you that in the next few months, you will be addressing the housing element and fair share plan, which requires a public hearing, and that will probably be sometime in May or early June. As I said, just the background for you, members of the board, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can proceed with the next application.
Any questions from the board? No? Okay, so we will move on to our first site plan application, 16 Rose Terrace, Block 185.01, Lot 1603.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Donald Fraser. I'm an attorney with the firm of Parada, Fraser, and Forrester here in Clark.
When you finish.
Privileged this evening to represent Mr. Eli Levine, who is the contract purchaser of the premises located at 16 Rose Terrace. We're here this evening seeking a subdivision of the existing property into two single-family lots that would be resulting from the subdivision. It's fully conforming in all respects but one, and that one respect is that the resultant lots will be 65.5 feet wide each, whereas the property is located in the R75 zone, so that 75 feet of frontage for each lot would be required. I apologize, would be required. So bulk variance relief is sought for each of those two resultant lots. That's the application in a nutshell. My first witness is our engineer, Mr. Wayne Ingram.
Mr. Chair, because this is the first meeting of the year where there have been applications, with your permission, what I'd like to do is swear in all the applicants' professionals at one time, and also swear in our professionals because we have some that are visiting tonight. So I'll do that en masse, and then you can proceed with your application. Okay? So
Is anyone,
do you have any other witnesses?
I have Mr. Ingram, and I potentially have my client as well. I haven't determined whether we're going to need my client to testify.
Is he here?
Yes.
Why don't we bring him up? Okay. And the professionals, if you would just stand up. Okay. When I get to the point where I say state your name, just simply state your name individually, and I'll continue. Okay. Please raise your right hand. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will faithfully and truly. I'm getting my oaths. I'm confused. No, I'm getting my oaths confused. I was giving you an oath of office. I was going to make you a planning board member, but I apologize. We'll start again. And I'm turning red, too, so that'll tell you something. You've stated all your names. I solemnly swear to tell the truth in this proceeding. So help me God. Thank you very much.
I was following along. I thought I might have 2 votes already there. Okay, so, Mr. Ingram, would you please apprise the board of your qualifications?
Sure. I'm a licensed engineer, surveyor, and planner in the state of New Jersey. I've been practicing engineering for 20 years.
Motion to accept.
And, okay, all set.
Motion.
And I just want to be clear, he's being put forth as an expert in all 3 of those fields, engineering, surveying, and planning.
Thank you.
Mr. Ingram, why don't you explain the application to the board?
Sure. So we have a 18,000 square foot lot on Rose Terrace in the R75 zone. Currently contains an existing single-family residence and other associated improvements, a pool, decks, a shed. Our proposal is essentially to subdivide the lot down the center, creating 2 resultant lots of about 9,000 square feet apiece, which exceeds, I believe, the 7,500 square feet required in the zone. As you heard from our attorney, the lot widths will be 65.5 each, where 75 is required, so just under 10 feet short. However, what we have submitted to you in the package is a representative development of the property, basically showing you that, you know, as we still exceed the lot area by quite a bit, we can fit 2, you know, very decently sized homes consistent with the neighborhood, without any violations of any setbacks or anything else. So, you know, again, you know, and this is done in a way that ultimately can also reduce the impervious for the site compared to what exists out there today. So, certainly nothing that would be I would consider overbuilt for the property. We have provided your board engineer with a stormwater management report to document how the construction of the 2 homes in place of the current development could actually reduce the stormwater runoff based on the large amount of impervious out there today. And again, other than that, certainly a conforming application consistent with the surroundings of the neighborhood. We are seeking that 1 variance for the lot width, and we're proposing that under a C2 argument. When you look at not just what's around us, but all of the surrounding streets, the only lots that actually meet the 75-foot lot width are oddly shaped lots on the corners and a couple of infill properties. The predominant lot width in this entire area is somewhere between about 50 and 55 feet. So even with the subdivision, we're probably going to be one of the wider lots out there, and one of the few that probably even exceed the lot area requirements of the zone. And actually, if you go just south of this property, there's a similarly sized lot, and just behind that, there was a lot, again, of a similar dimension that apparently these were all kind of in a row when this was subdivided originally. That lot has already been subdivided recently to create 2 lots that also have less width than we're proposing here today. So I would argue that, you know, our proposal is certainly in keeping with the surrounding environment. I think we further a few purposes of zoning, promoting the general welfare, establishing appropriate population densities, and providing sufficient space to meet public needs. All of these are consistent with the findings in a similar case that I referenced of Kaufman versus the Planning Board of Warren Township, where the board granted an approval for substandard lot widths under the guise of those purposes of zoning, in that the subdivision will be more conforming to the neighborhood if we do this versus leave it alone. If you have a lot this large with the coverages and everything permitted, you could end up with a house that is massive, and it's not going to fit with the neighborhood. It's going to be oversized. By subdividing these lots, we'll make sure that the houses are going to look like everything around them in terms of size and scale, and will fit in the community better. Sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I'll talk closer, that's fine. And so really, I see no negative impacts with the application because, again, we're conforming to the neighborhood in terms of all those aspects. Certainly proposing a conforming use, conforming setbacks. If we were asking for relief for setbacks or impervious, you could say that, the subdivision's a little tight and we're overbuilding. But again, what we're showing you could be about an 1,800 square foot footprint home per lot, and again, fully conforming to setbacks. So I would say, again, this is really in keeping with our surroundings. In terms of the review letter from your engineer, we have reviewed it in entirety. We really have no comments. We will intend to comply with every aspect of that. We have no exceptions to that.
So in sum, the only thing that we're asking for is lot width, correct?
That is correct.
And the houses that are going to be proposed to be, or that are proposed to be built, will be also fully conforming with the FAR requirements, correct?
Yes, they will.
I just have one question. You're also asking for 2 waivers. Do you want to address those? If you look at your letter application of December 26th, the last page,
I'll pull it out, but you want to help me, Mr. Cruz?
well, it's section or letter F on the checklist, plans and profiles of all proposed streets within the subdivision with complete horizontal and vertical alignment data.
Yes, so we were proposing to not provide that checklist item because we're not doing any modifications to the roadway. We have 1 driveway today. We're putting 2 back. There's no drainage issues on the roadway and no need to make any modifications.
Okay. And section H, plans and profiles of all proposed and existing sanitary sewers, storm drains, drainage ditches, and streams within the subdivision.
Yes, so similarly, we would be looking for a waiver on that because we don't have any storm drains that we're affecting here. And again, we're proposing to reduce our impervious and our stormwater management runoff. And in terms of, sewer lines, the existing house has a sewer line that meets today. We're going to be able to grade this in the same fashion, so we have no concerns that we will have adequate cover on the sewer line.
I tender the witness, Mr. Chairman.
I have a question.
Does the board have any questions?
Board have any questions at this point?
I have a question. These 2 pieces of property, these 2 lots, they're going to be strictly for single-family homes?
Yes, sir, single-family use, yes.
Okay, thank you. What type of dwelling are you putting on there? It says 2.5 stories. Is it a colonial, split level?
I believe that is the intention, yes. Yeah, it would be a
Colonial?
2-story, yes.
2-story?
I'll have my client, who's the applicant, address that more specifically if you wish, Mr. Picado.
Yeah, please.
Any other questions from the board?
Well, let's have them come up.
Want to bring them up?
All right, Mr. Levine, you heard the question concerning the houses that you wish to build.
Sorry, I apologize about my voice. We are going to be building 2 colonials similar to what has been built in the area. I usually build more to the higher end, nicer dwellings than you would typically find in an average or huge development on builders. So they're going to be 2 stories, colonials, conforming.
And you said around 1,800 square feet was what I heard before.
Generally speaking, as a footprint, because that's what would be the max bout we could have with the FAR, yes.
Any other questions from the board? Open up to the public at this point. Anyone want to step forward, please state your name and address. Seeing that nobody's moving forward, close the open to the public. Okay.
Yeah. Second.
Okay. So now we'll do a roll call.
Well, there's got to be a motion, a second, a discussion among the board if you desire, and then a vote. So the motion would be just to to help the board, Mr. Chair, is a two-lot subdivision with a variance for lot width or lot frontage, with a variance for lot frontage where 75 feet is required and 65.53 feet is proposed for each lot. So the substantive part of the application is the subdivision, two lots, and then the second part of it is checklist waivers, as described by Mr. Ingram, that are basically technical waivers. So that's the motion before you. You would need a first, a second, and any discussion, and then a roll call.
Do we have a first or a first on that? And who was that?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay. So can we do a roll call?
Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay.
Seeing that there's no further discussion, we'll do roll call.
Mayor Albanese? Yes. Mr. Ulrich?
Yes.
Mr. Triola?
Yes.
Mr. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinberg?
Yes.
Mr. Brocato?
Yes.
Mr. Arancio?
Yes.
Mr. Gribb?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
A question, counsel. Now that the Star Ledger isn't a print edition anymore, who are we publishing with?
Well, until the legislature changes, at the end of last year, they adopted interim legislation allowing publication via electronic media or the electronic newspaper, provided that the newspaper is an official newspaper of the municipality. So if the Star Ledger was an official newspaper and it's no longer published or hard print, only online, then you can use the temporary legislation, but that expires at the end of this month. So write to your legislator and ask him to straighten out that notice requirement or that legal requirement.
I wish I had taped that, because I'm the planning board attorney for Garwood, and when I get asked that question, I know I wouldn't explain it that well.
Well, the key is it has to be an official newspaper and they have to be only online.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So at this time, we will do our second site plan application, 1180 Raritan Road, under Chase Bank, Block 60, Lot 22.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members, board professionals, members of the public. Stephen Hale representing the applicant, 1180 Raritan Road, LLC. And again, it's always a pleasure to be here this evening. And yes, this is an application for a new Chase Bank on the site where right now we have the Hackensack Meridian, used to be, obviously for years, Barnes & Noble. I think you'll see, based upon the testimony in our presentation this evening, it's a very attractive new building. We're going to have a representative from Core States, Chase, explain a little bit about the nature of this facility. It's not your regular run-of-the-mill bank. It's going to have a lot of geared towards providing financial discussions and counseling and the like. There is a drive-through, but it's only an ATM. It's not your traditional drive-through for money exchange and the like. We had DRC with your committees, with your board professionals. We received their reports. We're prepared to address all of those, and we've had numerous discussion with your board professionals, received updated reports, and again, we'll hope to your satisfaction to address any concerns there. And our professionals will address, there are some waivers and deviations that we're seeking, but I think it'll be, based upon the testimony, be more than satisfied that we meet that criteria. So that's an overview, Mr. Chairman, of our application. Okay. Yeah, no problem, no problem. Didn't want to interrupt you. So just by way of the lineup of our witnesses, first we're going to have our site engineer take us through overview, existing conditions, and then what's proposed by way of improvements, and we'll also address any departmental comments related to engineering and the like. We'll then have a representative of Core States, who's also a licensed architect, explain a little bit about the floor plans, the elevations, and the operational information, hours of operation, number of employees, and the like. We're then going to have our traffic engineer address any comments, although we have had an opportunity to speak to both Jay and John, and believe we've satisfied any issues that they've raised. Then we'll have our professional planner to address the planning relief being sought. The property owner is here in case there's any questions about the general site. But I think, again, when we were preparing for this, it really is an interesting concept, and also, and you'll see a great-looking proposed building there. And it's obviously an important location in Clark. It's, I don't know if you consider it the gateway, but it's right there and visible. So what I'd like to do first, Mr. Chairman and board members, is to call upon Adam Westenberger from Dynamic Engineering to take us through, as I said, now we do have, Donna, we have both digital and boards. Preference digital? Okay, cool. All right. In here.
Mr. Chair, if we can do the same thing we did before and swear all their witnesses in at one time, and we'll move it along.
Let's get the crew. Anyone who may testify?
You were sworn in, so you're okay. You're good for the night.
You can do it again if you want.
Good. Same routine. Please raise your right hand, state your name. I state your name.
I, Adam Westenberger,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will tell the truth
to tell the truth,
and nothing but the truth
nothing but the truth,
in this matter, so help me God.
in this matter, so help me God.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Okay. You have it in. So, you can probably, never mind. I'll let you use work order. Okay. So again, Adam Westenberger from Dynamic Engineering. You've been sworn. So if you could give the board and the board professionals the benefit of your work, educational experience, area of expertise, licenses you hold, and whether you've been qualified as a professional engineer before the boards or courts of the state of New Jersey.
Sure. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I'm a professional engineer in good standing in the state of New Jersey. I've presented in front of a couple dozen boards, including this board, and been accepted as a witness.
I'll move to accept.
Do we have a second?
Great. Thank you. Okay. So, Adam, you've heard my opening.
Please remember just to stay as close as you can. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If you could take the board through, again, existing conditions, and then what's proposed by way of improvements, and then address the professionals from the board's reports.
Sure. You want to just let me go here?
Sure.
I'd like to bring up my first exhibit, which is a colorized aerial exhibit from our plan set dated February 6, 2025, and marked as Exhibit A1. I don't know how the electronic... Nothing's popped up here. Nope. Oh, okay, hold on. Maybe. So I can have it here. Does it then go on the TVs? Do I need to?
This is desktop, so it should be there. There you go.
Thanks, Jim.
Can't control the HP product status here, but it's up there. The north arrow is located at the bottom left. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong. The north arrow is located at the top left, with the north arrow pointing to the top right, and the exhibit's at 100 scale. The property in question is identified as Block 60, Lot 22. The area of the lot is 4.4 acres. It's in the CI Commercial Industrial Zone. To the northeast is Central Avenue, and to the southeast is Raritan Road. And to the northwest and northeast is more of the commercial industry CI zone. To the southwest is the one-family detached residential R60 zone, and to the southeast is the neighborhood service commercial zone CN. The site has 2 right-in, right-out driveways on Central Avenue and 2 right-in, right-out driveways on Raritan Road. And the existing conditions are consisting of the Hackensack Meridian Health Center and the Chili's Bar and Grill restaurant with associated parking on site. Are there any questions about the existing site or this exhibit before I move on?
Questions from the board? No?
Okay, one sec. My second exhibit is the site plan rendering dated February 6, 2025. I'll mark it as Exhibit A2. It's a colorized exhibit of our overall site plan from our plan set. The north arrow is located in the bottom left corner with the north arrow pointing to the top, to the plan top right, and it's at 20 scale. As I noted, there's the existing uses, the medical office and the restaurant. Those are both permitted uses, and proposed is a Chase Bank. Banks and financial institutions, including drive-through banks, are also a permitted use in the CI zone. The proposed bank will have a footprint area of 3,368 square feet, and in combination with the requirements for the restaurant and the medical office, the total parking demand on site is 359 spaces, where at this time we're proposing 283 spaces, which is a required variance. We have our traffic engineer coming up shortly, who will speak to the adequacy of the parking on site. There's no changes to the existing access conditions of the 2 driveways on each fronting roadway. For the majority of the site, the existing 2-way circulation throughout the outside of the project area will remain. Under proposed conditions, the driveway to the southeast of the proposed Chase Bank will be one-way. After meeting with the professionals, we decided to minimize traffic interfering at the intersection, the driveway by Raritan Road. It would be better to make that a one-way driveway below the Chase Bank, just to limit folks coming out towards Raritan Road. The remainder of the drives will be 2-way circulation with 90-degree parking, and then the driveway to plan left of the proposed, the drive-through to plan left of the proposed Chase Bank. For pedestrian access, there's proposed sidewalk on 3 sides of the bank, every side except for the drive-through side, and there's also a proposed pedestrian connection to the existing sidewalk in Central Avenue. In addition to the proposed bank, we're also proposing a refuse enclosure. There's an existing dumpster refuse enclosure all the way on the far side of the lot. Sorry, I can't speak in the microphone and point at the same time. We're proposing a trash enclosure adjacent to that existing one, just to improve the conditions on site. At this time, there's some dumpsters in the loading area that we prefer to have in the enclosed refuge area. So right next to the existing one, we're proposing a new one. Here. For site lighting, we're proposing lights to comply with the ordinance requirements, both for walkways and sideways, and also for parking area. And we're also proposing lighting to comply with safety standards for the bank, which include lighting at the building entrance and at ATMs. And for landscaping, we're proposing a total of 539 different kinds of shrubs and trees, evergreen and deciduous, with the overall philosophy to use varying colors and textures and heights to soften the hard lines of the bank and the parking areas. For stormwater, the existing area that we're proposing the Chase Bank in is a parking lot at this time, so we're reducing the impervious coverage for the project. and the development is not considered a major development. However, after speaking with the township engineer, we've agreed to provide stormwater detention to further reduce the peak flows, even beyond the reduction in impervious coverage. I am going to go through the couple of technical letters.
Excuse me, before
Yes.
you go to that, explain a little bit better the detention basin, please? Is it a new
I'm
detention
sorry.
basin?
Yes. It is not a detention basin. We are installing oversized drainage pipes below the parking lot. So they will be sized greater than what would normally be required just to convey stormwater. And then they will have a smaller opening on the end called an orifice plate, which will just allow water to leave slower over time. So they're just oversized pipes. There's not any above-ground detention basin or anything of that nature. They're not visible on this plan. They're just connected between the inlets that are proposed for the conveyance of stormwater. It's just an oversized pipe, and that was agreed to with Rich O'Connor.
Is that incorporated in any report that he did?
Yes.
It is, okay.
So I'm going to touch on a few items from each of the reports. I'm going to skip over items that we are in agreement with or don't require any additional detail. I just want to provide some commentary and testimony on a couple of critical items and answer some questions that the professionals had. I'm going to start with Rich O'Connor's January 13th letter. And I'm going to start with item number 1.1, which is regarding the regarding the parking. And as I noted, our traffic engineer is going to have testimony on the adequacy of the parking coming up soon. For number 2.1, there are a couple of conditions associated with the Hackensack approval, Hackensack Meridian Health approval, that are incomplete at this time, and I wanted to explain why. There's EV charging stations that were proposed as part of that application. The infrastructure and the striping for those have all been constructed, and the engineer was wondering why it was not built yet. The holdup is there is an additional transformer required, which is waiting on PSE&G. So they are dictating when that gets installed, and once it is, then the chargers can be installed. But the infrastructure is there and ready to go.
And although that's a Meridian responsibility, you'll accept that as a condition of approval?
Yes. Right? And then the other part of 2.1, there is sidewalks that were being replaced along both county frontages that were a condition of the Meridian Health. We have, and landscaping as well that's associated with that. We have been speaking with the county on this for some time now. I say speaking, we've gone long times with silence from them on answers, and we're just trying to get clarity from them on what they would like us to propose. So when that is cleared up, we are still agreeable to that condition. It's not a problem. It's just been a long process of speaking with them, having them change their minds, sending them plans, not reviewing for months at a time. So we are just looking to close that loop with the county, and then the sidewalks will be replaced. They had just had some settlement issues, and they were no longer ADA compliant at the time of the Hackensack application. I'm moving to 3.2, which is actually about the stormwater. I already just touched on that, so we already spoke with Rich O'Connor, and he's agreeable to the installation of the oversized pipe with the stormwater control, just to provide some additional stormwater detention within the pipes that are being proposed. As I said, I'm skipping some items that are just informational or that we are all agreeable to, so I'm skipping to 4.3 of Rich's letter, Mr. O'Connor's letter. There were a couple of signs to the bottom of where the bank is being proposed. They were employee-only signs, and they were a relic of the Barnes & Noble application. They were left in as part of the Hackensack application, just as it wasn't in the project area. Nobody removed them. However, we're proposing to remove them at this time. They don't serve any function to Chase or Hackensack Meridian Health. They don't need them, and it just increases the parking flexibility if there aren't reserved spaces for employees that don't need them. So we're removing them as part of this application. 4.4 is the EV charging spaces I already touched on. 6.1 is just regarding operations. I just wanted to let you know that we have some members here from Chase and from the architecture firm that prepared the building plans that are going to discuss hours of operation and the general operations of the bank. And that's all I have for Mr. O'Connor's letter. I'm going to move to Mr. Ricky's letter, dated January 14th, 2025. And this one was not too much, but I just want to address all the way on page 3, comment 3D. He was asking about spaces being programmed specifically for the bank. And I think we discussed this at the TRC meeting, but there is no reservation of any spaces, just as the employee spaces. There's not going to be any designated, these are for Chase Bank, these are for Hackensack Meridian, these are for Chili's. There's nothing. It's flexible with whoever needs to park where can use all the spaces. And he also asked about the employee parking in 3E, so same answer there. And then 3I, building signage, which I should have touched on in my direct testimony. So there's an existing monument sign that's going to remain. We're not proposing any changes to that. And then for building signage, we're going to have the architect speak about that in a minute. However, there's some existing signs that identify the Chili's and identify the Hackensack Meridian. And then there's signs that identify the Chase, 4 total new signs that identify Chase Bank. And so there's only 2 are permitted on the lot, and we're proposing, there's 5 existing, and we're proposing 4 more, so 9 total. So that's the variance associated with signage. We are not exceeding the size of any sign, just the quantity, and that's purely to identify the different businesses. And as I said, there's no change to the existing freestanding sign on the ground. And then one more item from Mr. Ricky's letter, the last comment, 3M, he was asking what type of EV chargers. It'll be type 2 chargers, and they would benefit anyone who wants to use them, employees or patrons to the site.
Can you just repeat one more time the 9.5, the signage thing?
I'm sorry?
So what's up there currently?
There are 5 signs that are identifying either the Chili's or the Hackensack Meridian, and then there's going to be 4 signs for the Chase Bank.
4 additional.
4 additional signs, and we have elevations that you'll see those on in a minute.
And the architect's going to show it here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I had, Steve. Are there any?
There was a comment from the Clark Police Department, October 2, regarding bollards in front of the parking spaces.
Those plans were revised, and we're providing the bollards that they requested.
Okay, so that's been addressed. Thank you.
Yes.
There was also a comment, I think, when we said no problem, irrigation in the landscaping areas, again, no issue with that.
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. This bank's going to be in the middle of the parking lot?
Yes.
You're taking spots away from Chili's, so they're okay with that?
Yes, sir. The traffic engineer is going to discuss the adequacy of the parking for all the uses coming up.
I'm anxious to hear it. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
The professionals have any questions based on that testimony?
No, I have no questions at this time.
Neither do I, Mr. Chairman.
Open it to the public.
So anyone from the public that would like to step up and ask any questions about that last testimony only? Seeing that there's no one from the public stepping forward, close the...
Yes, thank you. And by the way, this is emphasizing how Clark has a great process by having your TRCs and having your professionals sit in on those meetings, getting feedback from your professionals, and we have reports, because in many municipalities, you go to the board meeting, and for the first time, you hear comments from your board professionals. And again, it's very helpful to have the quality of board professionals you have that give very detailed reports in adequate time. Don always makes sure we get those reports well in advance of the hearing so we can address those both before the TRC or DRC and then before the hearing. So I want to commend the Clark on that. So I'd like to now move upon having our core states, Chase, and actually architectural hat, James Lally testified. Yeah, let's see if we can.
Just state your name again and your position and your role. Yeah, they were all sworn, just don't want to hear his name again.
James Lally, I'm with Core States Group. I'm the architect for this Chase Bank location. I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the New York Institute of Technology. I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey as well as 25 other states, and have testified numerous boards throughout New Jersey.
Okay.
So you're
Continue.
both a representative of the bank and an architect.
The bank is my client. So we're an architectural firm, and we do...
You're not in-house.
No.
Thank you.
But you are obviously well familiar with the...
Yes, I've been fortunate enough to work on the JP Morgan Chase account for the past 33 years, so I've been developing a lot of banks with them for 3 decades now.
Great. Thanks, Jim. All right, so first what I'd like you to do is tell us a little bit, in my opening I was talking about the nature of this bank, what it's going to offer to the residents of Clark and the area, and why Chase has chosen Clark for this location.
Sure. I'll start with the floor plan, which was submitted to the board, and I can mark it at exhibit. I think it's A3 at this point.
Yes.
So what we're proposing is roughly just over 3,300 square foot bank for Chase. That's the sweet spot of banking these days, around 3,400 square feet. This bank will have all the services that you're familiar with a typical community bank. It'll have 2 24-hour ATMs, one in the front lobby, entrance lobby, and one at the drive-up. And the drive-up will also have a night deposit box as well for small businesses. Typical hours of operation for JP Morgan Chase is 8:30 to 6, Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 on Saturdays, and closed on Sundays. Of course, the ATMs will be accessible 24 hours. A bank of this size, typically JP Morgan Chase, maximum number of employees, 8 to 10, but on a typical day, you'll probably find 4, maybe 5 employees on a typical day. The number would increase determined on the number of scheduled appointments with advisors, banking advisors, lending advisors, and that kind of thing. The bank likes to position themselves in communities such as Clark, to ensure its success in the community and the marketplace, as well as develop relationships with existing and new customers and small businesses. The branches are typically staffed to meet the community needs and develop those relationships. And as I said earlier, beyond typical community banking, they'll provide financial and educational services, so financial advisors to optimize your financial life and through the latest tools and technologies, retirement planning and wealth management planning through JP Morgan Business Banking. Will be a part of this bank. The bank will also focus on small businesses and customers within the community for advice to start up small businesses, to grow those small businesses, and to maintain those small businesses. Home lending will be part of the model here. So first-time home buyers, existing home buyers come in and to get advice from home lenders, not necessarily mortgage brokers, but home lenders where they can walk them through the process, give them advice, especially those first-time homeowners in that journey to buy their first home. And then beyond banking, and Chase has worked with several communities and small businesses and nonprofits throughout New Jersey It's a model that's working well for them. They want to get involved in the community that they're in, develop those relationships with the small businesses and nonprofits. They would look to do that here in Clark and become part of the community and not just a standard bank. So lots of services that would be offered to all customers in the township. Any questions about the floor plan? I can run through the
Why don't
floor
you take
plan
us
real
through
quick.
The floor plan, and then we can move on to the elevations.
So the front entry, which faces Central Avenue, entrance lobby with a 24-hour ATM in there. You enter into the lobby of the bank, where you'll be greeted by a greeter, a Chase Bank employee. We have what they call the living room, which is essentially the waiting area. It also has the ability there for teleconferencing, financial seminars through that television there, so they can host certain events for the community customers as well. The right side of the plan around the perimeter, customer conference rooms and offices, some small open booths for informal conversations, larger conference rooms for a larger group of people. To the left side of the bank, we have a small teller line in the middle with some support space behind it. You see the drive-through at the top of the plan. And then all the way on the left side of the plan, that is basically the support spaces for the bank, restrooms, employee lounge, data room, that sort of thing, cash safes. And I just want to say, in this area here on the left side, this kind of rectangle here, this is where we're going to drop the roof structure, and we'll have all our mechanical units sitting in that well there. So they'll be screened from street view or view within the shopping center. The rest of the branch, basically a flat roof system. This branch will have solar panels on that roof system to generate some solar power for the branch as well. Those will also be screened by the parapets of the roof. They'll have a slight tilt on it. We have a pretty good southern exposure here on the long side of the building, so that should help us out.
All right, and why don't we go through the elevations that we
Yeah. Any questions on the floor plan?
Questions, board? No?
If I can slide this. Okay.
I don't think you marked that, just mark it A3.
Mark this.
You did?
A3.
Okay, good, thank you.
Thanks, Art.
We submitted some two-dimensional colored elevations, but for tonight's meeting, we developed some three-dimensional colored renderings. I'll mark this one as A4. Essentially, this is the front of the bank that faces Central Avenue. To the left is that area that I talked about that we're going to drop the roof structure and house the mechanical units. That area will have a chiseled limestone finish on it all the way around. The front of the building essentially has, it's called a Nichiha siding. It's a horizontal siding it doesn't overlap, it's stacked. And we have two colors, a bark and an ash color. And then you see the two signs on the building, one on the front and one on the side here. All four signs are the same size. They're internally illuminated, white letters, the blue Chase octagon. The letter sets are 24 inches in height. The octagon is 31.5 inches in height. The spread of the signage is about 14 feet, 0 and 1/2. They're all 36.9 square feet, all the same size. Size works well with the architecture of the building in terms of size and scale. Tastefully done, in my opinion. All the storefronts on here will be black storefronts with clear glass and black canopies, one over the entry, and we'll see a small one over the drive-up to cover the customer, in the weather. That'll match the storefront. We'll have some sunshades on the horizontals of the storefront to give break up the sunlight during the daytime within the branch, and we're going to cap it off with the same black coping at the top of the building. And all these finishes carry around the whole building, so whether you're on the street or in the site, it's the same finishes around the building.
Quick question. It's going to be the Raritan Road facing side. So that's going to be the east side. Realizing obviously all four sides are important, but that's one that Raritan's going to see. Is there anything aesthetically that could be done there? I know it's more of like a utility wall, but is there anything foliage-wise or even architecturally with a different tone?
Yeah, you're right, so, because that's essentially the private space of the building,
Right.
right? So that's why we do the chiseled limestone there. It's a stone finish, as, you know, to give that a nice look there. We do have some small up and down lighting, so at night you'll have some, you know, light, cascading light on the facade as well to kind of light up and down as well. It gives it a really nice look at night as well.
Okay, it's just that's the side that's facing Raritan, which is going to be seen quite a bit. Not that it's ugly in any way, but I was just wondering if there's anything that you could think of to spruce it up a little bit.
I mean, we possibly do something around the doors. We've done something like that before. But let me show you the other rendering too, because that kind of shows the view of the Raritan side as well. And I'll mark this Exhibit A5. It's a view from the other side of the bank. So this is really the kind of the view you're going to see as you're coming down Raritan Road towards the corner there, right? You're mainly going to see the main finishes of the branch. And here we have the same finishes in the front.
Can you change the display to the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the computer? Thank you.
I'll try. There we go.
Did you mark that one?
Yes, A5.
Okay, thank
You see the same finishes in the front, and then at our conference room, you see this box area here. That's same material as storefront, except we change it to a clear anodized. It pops out of the building to give it some interest there. Same sunshades and canopy over the drive-up ATM, and then you see the same sign. So as you're coming down Raritan Road, I mean, this is really the view that you're going to see, and then with our, you know, chiseled limestone corner over here on the right side of the branch. So it has that look as you travel around the whole branch. So I think, you know, coming down Raritan Road or Raritan, you're going to see this view mainly.
Yeah, I don't think in that other rendering, you didn't pick up the rest of it. Yeah.
Right.
Good question.
It's got a lot of architectural interest on the site, especially with the conference room. They call that the jewel box. It kind of pops out and gives us some more interest there.
And I know that when Adam testified, he talked about, right now, it's just a parking lot, all impervious, and we're introducing landscaping and the like. Can you indicate to the board that these renderings somewhat accurately reflect how the landscaping around the building will be?
Yeah, our renderer took the site plan and developed the rendering and the background photos based on you know, actual photos and what's called out on the site plans. So you see a lot of what's going to be here in the future. And then you see the other two signs here, which face Raritan Ave and inside the shopping center. So we're identified on the roadway, and if you're within the shopping center, identified as well. Any further questions?
Questions from the board?
I just have two questions. Chase banks are generally closing. In my area, two have closed. Do you have is there a lease for this bank here?
Yes, there's a long-term lease for this bank with options to extend.
How long is the initial term?
It's a 10-year lease with options to extend.
Okay. All right, so the Chase Bank has already made a long-term commitment to this location, and it's not being built on spec?
Correct, yes. This is an investment for them for their banking portfolio as well as in the community of Clark, absolutely.
No, I combined them.
Questions from the professional?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you expand a little bit on the other signs, the building maintenance signs you're showing now, the need for exposure? I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, because you have a sign on each side of the building, which is not typical.
Right.
On a corner lot, you're allowed two for the different road exposures, but now here, you're all four. Can you just...
Yeah, so we essentially do have, you know, two road exposures. I think that's, you know, kind of obvious that we want to be identified whatever direction you're approaching the site. We're not, it doesn't seem like we're going to have a sign on the multi-tenant pylon sign. So if somebody's, and then if somebody's coming in on the other side of the site or the back of the site, within the site, we want to have the building identified as well so it can be clearly seen and know that the bank is over there, whether they're going for drive-up services or something else. So a lot of these signs, especially this one here on the left side, will really mainly be seen when you're in the shopping center, not so much for the roadway. But we do have the two main ones on the roadway, and then these two here. We'll get a little exposure on this one from Raritan Ave before you pass the bank. If you do pass the bank, we have the other sign so people can maybe make a left turn and come back around. And then this one here, mainly if somebody's coming on the other side of the shopping center, clearly see the bank where it's located.
Okay, so it would help customers who might be coming just to the bank as opposed to other things to be able to find it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'd now like to call upon our traffic engineer, Craig Paragoy.
Just state your name and spell your last name.
Already, so.
I know, it's like I gotta keep my arm down, it just wants to go up when I walk up here.
State your name and spell your last name.
Sure, my name's Craig Paragoy, P-E-R-E-G-O-Y.
Thanks. And Mr. Paragoy, if you could give the board the benefit of your credentials, work experience, licenses, and qualifications.
Sure, I have a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Virginia Tech. I'm a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey. I've been working as a traffic engineer for almost 25 years now.
Motion to accept?
Second?
Great. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Paragoy, I know your firm worked on this project for quite some time. Give you an overview of site circulation, traffic, and parking.
Sure. I'll touch briefly on traffic. Obviously, this is a permitted use here, but in terms of traffic generation of this project, we took a look at the ITE, or the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual. That gives me, based on the size of the bank, the amount of traffic that we'd expect to see, including what a lot of the traffic associated with banks are, particularly the ATM, the pass-by traffic. In other words, people who are already on Central or Raritan and just stop in to use the ATM because now it's convenient and on their way. So what really is impactful in terms of traffic generation is the new traffic generated to the area. And based on the ITE numbers, when we're looking at the peak hours, and for a bank, we're looking at the weekday evening peak hour and then a Saturday midday, because in the morning, the bank is only open for a small portion of that morning time period. But if you look at those numbers for the evening and Saturday, it generates about 50 trips in an hour. So 46 in the evening, 55 on a Saturday, to give you the specific numbers. What's typically considered a significant increase in traffic, and New Jersey DOT and many other jurisdictions use 100 trips or more as the threshold for, hey, we better see if this is going to have off-site traffic impacts. So we're at half of that going in and out of this particular site. When you further dilute that over the multiple driveways to this larger shopping center, you consider the fact that a lot of the people who are using the bank may also be using some of the other facilities in the center. You might hit the ATM before you go into Chili's or after you come out of Hackensack Meridian. So that even dilutes it farther. So I certainly, based on those numbers, wouldn't anticipate any negative traffic impacts from this. I think the more critical portion of my report, what we focused more on, was the parking, because obviously we're asking for the parking variance. I'll just go through the numbers from your ordinance for the record. The Chili's restaurant requires 1 space per 50 square feet, so that comes out to 120 parking spaces. I'm sure Chili's will be thrilled if they had 120 cars parked out there for their lot, but that's what the ordinance says. The medical office and the back-of-house building support, which actually doesn't generate parking, is 1 space per 150 square feet. And then the bank requires 1 space per 200 square feet. So when you do the math and you add all that up, it's 359 total required. We're providing 269 physical spaces after the bank goes in. Technically, it's 283 because of the EV law, the state law. We get a 14-space double-counted credit, but we'll talk in reality here. There's 269 physical parking spaces. The variance ask is 283 versus 359. So what we did was take a look at the parking for these 3 uses in a number of different ways. We looked at the ITE published data. I gave you those traffic numbers earlier. They also have parking data. The Urban Land Institute has parking data, and they have a publication that they update periodically called Shared Parking. It's a good tool to use when you have different uses that maybe don't have their peak parking demand at the same time. And then we actually took actual counts on the ground. We have an existing, the Chili's and Hackensack Meridian are there, so 3 different ways, 2 different nationally recognized publications that we use as traffic engineers, and then actual on-the-ground counts. So I'll go through each of those. The ITE data we utilized just like the trip generation data, based on the size of the building, I can look at the parking demand. Generally, we use the average peak parking demand. In this case, I looked at a little bit worst case scenario. It's the 85th percentile demand. Statistically speaking, 85% of the sites counted would have less parking demand than this number. So that's kind of the worst case scenario. And if I go through, I won't go through each individual one if anybody wants the specific math, but if you go through the ITE and add up Chili's, Hackensack Meridian, the medical space, and the bank, you get to 251 parking spaces required. Again, we have 269. So if you just add them up, we're in good shape there based on the ITE data. But all these uses don't peak at the exact same time. Chili's obviously, is going to be more lunchtime and evening, whereas the medical office is more mid-morning, mid-afternoon. So the ITE gives you the percentage of peak demand throughout the day based on each hour of the day. So I can go through and say, okay, the medical office needs 136 spaces, but at 7 a.m. it needs 20% of them and 30, 40. So you go on and you go through that calculation and you can figure out the instantaneous at one time peak demand. That 251 drops down to 232 when I go through that. So the busiest hour of the day, 232 spaces. Again, we have 269. The next publication that I mentioned is the Urban Land Institute, and we use that really for that shared parking scenario. They have a whole manual published on that, a pretty complicated spreadsheet where you can import the different uses, and it kicks out that number. If I use their base parking demands before you consider the varying peaks, it actually adds up to 269 required for the Chili's, Hackensack Meridian, and the bank, and that's right where we're at. But when you go through that shared calculation process, it comes down to 233 spaces. So that's pretty remarkable, actually, that the ITE would suggest 232 and the Urban Lands Institute 233. They're really close. Usually there's a little more disparity there. So pretty confident in that. But the reality of all of it is your ordinance, the Urban Land Institute, the ITE, it's all based on historical data, going back to the late 90s, most of it. Obviously, times have changed pretty substantially since then, so parking demand has definitely decreased. I mean, if you look at the Chili's, if you have a craving for Chili's, you can call up Uber Eats or DoorDash, and they'll go pick it up and bring it to your house. You don't necessarily need to go there. Banks, everybody's not running in on a Friday afternoon and cash their paycheck anymore. You can take a picture on your phone. Even medical, we've seen a big drop in the parking demand for medical office space because a lot of the more routine visits are now telehealth, you're on Zoom. So parking demands are coming down, and if you take a look at what's actually happening out there when we did our counts, you can see that borne out. We counted the parking lot at this site on a weekday in May, Tuesday, May 14th specifically, and on a Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., just what's going on, who's going in and out of here. And the maximum parking demand that we saw at any one time was 72 cars. So that leaves 197 spaces available for the bank, and clearly that's not realistic. So you do see a lot lower in practice than the published data, but you're looking at three metrics here. The published data that we'd have to go by if this was woods in a vacant site, two different sources show that there's enough parking, and then if you look at the actual on the ground parking counts, it's even less parking demand. One of the comment letters suggested that maybe that the Hackensack Meridian hadn't fully matured yet because it's been in there more recently. We actually did have counts for another same type of facility that had been matured in Eatontown, on Route 35 in Eatontown. Hackensack Meridian, similar size facility. If I do the math for their parking ratio, it's way less than your ordinance. It's 43 parking spaces would be occupied if it generates its parking at the same as that. Again, the historical data from your ordinance and the ITE is over 100 parking spaces would be required. So realistically, that's the big difference, is that medical space isn't going to generate the parking that you saw at Barnes & Noble or what it would have even generated 20 years ago. So for that reason, certainly think there's more than enough parking, and that certainly looks a lot better than the empty sea of asphalt that's out there today.
I got one question. Based on Mr. O'Connor's letter, number 4.5, the recommendation that the restricting vehicles exiting the drive-through and making a right turn onto the adjacent ingress, sorry, drive off of Raritan Road. Did you look into that, and what is your feeling on that?
We've done that. We made that change. In fact, you can even see it here. See the two arrows are pointing away. So-
Okay.
And there's a no right turn sign. I don't know if this will actually show. No, that's just going to make a mess. Never mind. There's a no right turn sign coming out of the ATM, so we've taken care of that.
Okay.
And agree, it makes sense.
Any questions from traffic engineer?
Working?
Yes,
Is it recording?
it's on.
It's already on. Green light's on. Okay. Good evening, John Ray from McDonough Ray Associates. I'm sitting in for my partner Jay Trapman this evening. Just want to tell the board that I take no exception to the testimony regarding the traffic and the parking impact from the proposed Chase Bank. Having done numerous traffic and parking studies for similar banking facilities, I think Mr. Paragoy took a conservative approach with respect to the traffic and the parking. I just want to say I concur with his findings with respect to the very limited impact it's going to have on parking and traffic. And I think it's a good fit for the center with respect to the other uses, the Chili's, which basically has a peak parking demand late in the afternoon, early evening. The bank's going to generate very little parking at that point in time. It's a good fit for the center. We have plenty of parking. And like I said, I take no exception to the testimony.
Was the testimony regarding circulation sufficient for you?
As long as that aisle on the south side of the building is converted to a one-way aisle towards Central Avenue, so we don't have that conflict near the first driveway on Raritan Road, which is the right-in, right-out driveway, I have no other issues with the application. And they've agreed to make that a one-way away from that driveway on Raritan Road to eliminate those conflicts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the public would like to step up and have a comment or question about the testimony? Seeing that no one from the public is stepping up, we can move forward.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd now like to call upon John Taikina, who is our professional planner, to address the relief being sought from a planning standpoint.
Hi, I'm John Taikina, T-A-I-K-I-N-A. I'm a licensed planner in the state of New Jersey, have been since I completed my studies at Rutgers University in 1992. I've spent the last 32 years doing this. I actually believe I testified for Barnes & Noble in 1998.
I'll move to accept.
I was a baby planner then. I'm here to talk about the application from a planning standpoint.
Anna, did you get that? We had our motion in a second.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sorry, I went too fast. Here to talk about the application from a planning standpoint. We are permitted use. We do require some relief for minimum open space, which exists, 6.7, is proposed at 8.8. This is an improvement from the existing. We also seek a variance for maximum impervious coverage. 85% is required, 93.3 exists. We're proposing 91.2. Again, an improvement from the existing. Both of these are C1 variances. There are existing conditions on the site. Reducing them further would be a hardship, particularly in terms of how much parking is required by your ordinance. We've heard extensive testimony that actually that parking is not required in actuality, but it is required by ordinance. So we're in a push-me-pull-me, and reducing those two measures would be a hardship in that regard. We also require some relief from maximum number of signs. Your ordinance permits 2 on the building. We are proposing 4 on the building, again, because it is a true 4-sided building. I think that Mr. Lally did a very nice job of showing that all 4 sides of that building are finished. There's certainly no back, if you will, of the building, so having signage on all 4 sides is appropriate. Likewise, it is appropriately scaled, both physically on the building as well as per your ordinance in terms of sign size. The sign variance would be a C variance. Again, the standard there is, are we advancing some of the purposes of zoning? And then obviously with all of our variance relief, we need to satisfy your negative criteria. We're not going to have any substantial detriment to public good, not going to have a substantial impairment to the zone plan and the master plan. I'd submit to you that there are several purposes of zoning we're advancing. Purpose G, to provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses according to their respective environmental requirements to meet the needs of New Jersey citizens. I, to promote a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. And M, to encourage the coordination of various public and private procedures and activities shaping land development with a view towards lessening the cost of such development and to the more efficient use of land. Increasing the utility of the site at this highly visible location at the gateway to the town with another productive use is certainly appropriate. In terms of the site improvements, there's certainly sufficient space in this location to provide for the proposed use. The site improvements will create a better and more efficient land use condition, substantial increase in landscaping. There are aesthetic improvements proposed, both in terms of landscaping, as we talked about some of the cleaning up some of the other elements on the site in terms of trash, et cetera. And the building, the building is, as shown on A5, is quite frankly stunning, I think, for a building, for a bank building. They're really stepping up their game. And represents, you know, you talked about two banks being closed, et cetera, and I know that in different conversations as part of your technical process, there was a conversation about banks are closing, why aren't you using one of the closed ones, et cetera. This is Chase making a substantial investment in your community because of the quality of your community. And I think that's something to be exemplified and to be cherished. So again, I think it's a substantial investment in terms of the quality of the building. Overall, the application will promote the general welfare by providing a balanced land use pattern while eliminating some really underutilized impervious coverage. I've been on the site twice, both weekday at lunchtime. I figured with Chili's, it'd be a good time to be there, and there were hundreds of empty parking spaces, especially in that corner up on Central Avenue. So again, I think it's a much better use of the land to place a really attractive building there as opposed to an empty parking lot. In terms of negative criteria, there's no substantial detriment to public good. This is not a noxious use. It's a bank. The proposed improvements are an improvement to the existing condition with a permitted use. In terms of the parking, this is certainly a C2 variance. We believe providing enough parking is a better plan than providing too much. Certainly having access to empty parking is truly a waste of land and a waste of resources. Dynamics done a really nice job of showing you how it stacks up in terms of your ordinance, in terms of the national standards, ITE and ULI, and then most importantly, how it stacks up in real life. That total parking demand during a peak weekday or a peak Saturday is 72 vehicles. So again, hundreds of empty spaces, much better to provide for an additional use in that area and represents a better plan. There is certainly no negative encroachment on the surrounding properties. All the setbacks, et cetera, all fit. In terms of the zoning ordinance, the zone plan, the purposes of your zoning ordinance, again, to promote appropriate use of development, to provide for adequate light, air, and open space, to encourage a location and design to promote a free flow of traffic, and to promote a desirable visual environment. Again, they purport directly with the purposes of zoning that I advanced. And in terms of your master plan, reexamination from 23, again, to promote a balanced land uses, including commercial, residential, recreational, and conservation, and to safeguard the tax base, preserve economic balance, and provide for continued sources of employment and tax ratables through the appropriate use of non-residential land. I think we're certainly advancing those purposes of your master plan and in no way impairing them. So for these reasons, I believe you have the ability to grant the relief requested. I'm available for your questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the board? Professionals?
Mr. Chairman, Martin Truscott, sitting in for Paul Rickey. I take no exception or no issue with Mr. Takina's testimony. He hit on all required elements, and as he always did a nice presentation. In terms of the signs, I don't have an exception with his testimony on the signs. They seem to be the additional signs on all sides of the building, which are not typical, but I think it's tastefully done, and I think that the benefits to wayfinding on the site will outweigh any kind of detriment that could be.
No, I have nothing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have no further witnesses at this time. Obviously, any of our witnesses that have testified are here. And she's here in case you had any questions for the property owner. But if you'd like, I could just briefly sum up, unless there's...
Anyone have a need for a sum up, or are we pretty good here?
Well,
I wanna hear from you.
Well, you have to
One last time for the public, based on that last testimony. Anyone want to
I think
step
it's
up?
all our crew, but...
Thank you very much. Seeing that no one's here from the public, we can continue.
Okay. If you would, you don't necessarily need to sum up following the chair's suggestion, but identify specifically the variances that the board is being asked to grant.
Sure.
And then confirm that all of the professional reports are acceptable as conditions unless otherwise specified by you in your closing there.
Yes, no problem. So, yes, we have received your board planners report, your board engineers report, traffic engineers report, and police department. No problem with any of those reports, and we agree to comply with all of those conditions. I think the planning report outlines the relief being sought, and I'll go to Paul's memo. One is the number of parking spaces, which we've spoken about, with the 285, which includes the 14-space EV credit, where 359 are required. There is the minimum open space, where 15% is required. Existing is 6.7. We're actually, and it's kind of rare when you come in and put a building in a parking lot, we're actually increasing the open space because we're adding landscaping in that area around the building. The next is maximum impervious coverage. Maximum is 85%. At the present time, it's 93.3, and we are reducing it. It still exceeds the amount, but we're reducing it to 91.2. And then the number of signs, and again, it's under the ordinance, limited to 2 per side, and we're seeking on all 4 sides, and I think we've provided the testimony. It's a unique location and in essence has 4 exposures. So, Mr. Cruz, that's the relief that we're seeking as part of the application.
And this is a commercial application, so you're bound to pay the affordable housing commercial development fee.
Yes. And we're also committed, I know it's in the letters, to make sure that those conditions that were outlined, I think our site engineer addressed it when we reviewed reviewed Rich's letter, that those items that were carryovers from Hackensack Meridian would be addressed. We did get, Don, I think it was just this week or the end of last week, we got the county approval for this project, which was good to see. So that's an overview, and I think we've, I'll sit down.
Anything else?
Thank you all.
Comments from the board?
So if there's a motion, the motion will be to approve the variances as identified by Mr. Hale. I'm not going to repeat them all. And that all of the conditions stated in the professionals' reports are acceptable to the applicant, that they will pay the applicable affordable housing fee, and although there are responsibilities of Meridian that were identified, this applicant will take care of those conditions. How they work it out between Meridian and themselves is another question. It's for them, but they're undertaking that as an additional responsibility.
Thank you. Hopefully I don't have to repeat all that, but I will say, passing the lot 10 times a day, I spent a little bit more time recently since this came across my desk noticing that that corner really is kind of a dead area. Doesn't seem like it serves much use at all. I think the building is beautiful. Landscaping looks great. As far as the signage, you know, it makes sense to have something on all four sides. What side are you going to take them off of? I don't really see a need. The one side would be the one with the blank wall, but then it makes it even more blank. So I have no problem with the signs. So based on that, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Second. That's a second, right?
What?
It's a second.
A second.
Yes.
Sorry.
Can we get a roll call?
Mayor Albanese?
Yes.
Mr. Albrecht?
Yes.
Albrecht? Mr. Triola?
Yes.
Mr. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Steinberg?
Yes.
Mr. Brocato?
Yes.
Mr. Laurencio?
Yes.
Mr. Gribb?
Yes.
Application approved.
You all again, have a great night. Look forward
Thank
to
you.
the project moving forward. Take care, and I appreciate all your help.
Appreciate it. So at this time, I'm going to like to open up the public session. Motion to open the meeting to the public.
Motion.
If anyone would like to step forward,
Excuse me?
state your name and address.
Yes.
Seeing that no one's stepping forward, I'd like to make a motion to close the public session.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Any new business?
Is there anything coming in front of us soon, or?
Donna, new business?
No new business.
Okay.
No old business.
Any old business?
Yes, I'd like to know what's happening with the AMP property. Where do we leave off with that?
Yeah, we're,
The A&P property, they're still in negotiations for the old Citizens Bank. It went out on February 17th, 2 years ago, so 2023. We had to wait 2 years before we could make any move towards condemnation. So, you know, we're hoping that they come to an agreement soon. If not, we're going to have to move forward with the condemnation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next meeting will be March 6th. Motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Second.